do you have any kind of spiritual practices or beliefs besides Vipassana, and how have they kind of affected you?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at my desk, you'll see all of my journals that I've literally written my physical manifestation in. So what I am experiencing now, like the condo that I live in, I wrote about that condo for months before it was on the market.
Wow.
So that was one of the practices that I was really diligent with, getting very clear on what I wanted to build, what I wanted my life to look like. Even down to my husband, I wrote about him in my journal before him and I met. And so that was one of the things. For a while I did a lot. I'll be honest, I'm feeling less inclined to journal these days, and I'm just allowing that to be that, because I know some people will be like, oh, you have to do it every day. Like,
that's where I felt I have to do it, but then I fall off.
Like, no, I've manifested greatness without having to write every day, but I love it as a practice because it's really my time to get my thoughts into paper. And it's so interesting to look back now and see, oh my God, I literally wrote this. Mm-hmm. I literally, like, you can't make this shit up, because I have the dates of when I wrote it. And it's like, I'm writing stuff in 2020 and 2021, even around how much money I would be making monthly. I used to write about when I was making a couple $1,000, barely scratching $4,000 a month. I would write every single day that I'm an excellent money manager. I attract $20,000 every single month without fail, with ease, through multiple sources of income. Like, these are stuff that I was writing every single day.
And you stayed consistent with the number.
Yeah, I was very consistent with the number. And then there was a point where the number didn't feel good for me, and so I changed the number.
When you hit the number, or when it was like,
no, even before the number, I was like, no, it felt like I was gripping and chasing money. And then that didn't feel in harmony with my, theory around it being around service. So then I started changing it to like, I help 20 people a month and know that that brings me X amount of dollars. Like, I started switching it up. But even my condo, like, I tell you, I wrote windows where I can watch the sunrise every single morning, and our unit is the unit that catches sunrise.
Wow.
And so this is not stuff that is like woo woo, like, I mean, look at my notebooks. It's literally there. It's literally happened.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that for about 3 years I was pretty consistent with.
When you say consistent, is that like every day? I'm asking because, like,
yeah,
I have this struggle within me. It's like, because I'm an emotional being, and it's like, I need to do it every day, but then sometimes it feels off wrong.
So if it feels wrong, like, I wouldn't force it.
Not wrong, but like, it feels like I should be doing it. I guess then.
I would say every day connecting with your goal is pretty important. People will connect to their goal differently. Some people will go for a run and will think about their goal. Some people will sit in silence for 5 minutes. Some people will take one really long breath and think about it. So you can find what works for you and bring in different modalities. Mm-hmm. So it's really what feels right. There was a time where journaling was it for me. Like, that was, it felt, I would put my pen to paper and it was like, the words just came right to and through me. The ideas came right through and to me. Now I'm feeling more inclined to sit in silence, and the ideas come that way. And so even just knowing yourself of like, there's no one way, and it could change. Like, sometimes I feel like journaling and I'm like, you know what? I want to sit down and journal. And sometimes I'm like, no, I'm not going to listen to a podcast during my workout. And the whole time I'm just going to be thinking about like, what's my goal for this day? Like, how am I going to show up today? So I think the intention of connecting with your goal is a daily practice. The vehicle that you do that, how you do it, when you do it, how long you do it for, if you do it in the morning, if you do it in the afternoon, like, that's really up to you. I think there's this false expectation of like selling this framework of, if you do it as soon as you wake up in the morning for 1 hour, then that's what millionaires do. Like, fuck, I know some millionaires that don't do morning routines. So, you know, it's just about finding what works for you. And so every season could look different, and you want to just like allow the seasons to tell you like, okay, this is the season for this, you know? Yeah.
That's actually very useful for me, because for me, like, I'm always a sponge, but that's like, sometimes it's not good because, and because I read so many different things. I read Alex, I read Layla, I read David Goggins, I'm reading, Tim Ferriss, I'm reading all these people, and they all have slightly different but similar approaches, and my head is like swiveling around. But then I realized, like, I listen to everyone but me.
Yes. This is why I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, which is ironic.
But listen to this one, okay?
But because we're recording a podcast.
You gotta listen to this one.
But that's also part of it for me. I know that I've learned this saying from one of my mentors, Jim Quick. He said, leaders are readers. And so I always embody that. Like, leaders are readers. They're always looking for more education and bettering themselves. But there comes a point where we get into just like consumption overload.
Yes.
Where then you like get into like analysis paralysis and like you don't actually take action and it's just like content overload. That's also not a good place to be. And so sometimes like I read a few books, but read them every day or read them often. And they're kind of like my Bibles, if I could call it that. So I'm not reading too many books. Like when I read Alex Hormozi's book, $1 Million Offer, I read that book for 3.5 months.
Which is probably...
And I didn't listen to anything else. And I only did that. So I wasn't saying like, okay, well, I'm trying Alex's strategy. Let me try this strategy too. I was only doing that. And so I worked on my offer for 3 months and I didn't also pick up a social media course and also hire a new team member. Like I was like, I'm just going to learn this one thing and I'm going to implement the heck out of that until I get the result.
Which he also talks about that. He's like, read one book, but keep doing it.
Yes.
No, Paul, do it again. This is the 5th time you've heard this.
Yeah.
Do it.
So like when I read a book that I like, or I listen to a podcast that I like, I'm just asking myself, because sometimes you listen to something and you listen and then you're like, oh, what did I even listen? Like I didn't even pick up really anything. I can read one paragraph, but I study that paragraph and then I ask myself, how can I embody that paragraph? So maybe I'm not reading 3 chapters. Maybe I don't finish a book in a week, but I'm taking one lesson, just one part of it, and just saying, okay, how can I just be what this is saying? How can I integrate this 3 lines into the next week here? So it's almost like less is more sometimes,
yes,
you know?
Yes. And something that's like unsaid in here is you found a way to get rid of your ego, that you don't have to finish a chapter. You don't have to finish a book. Cause I struggle with that. I'm like, I need to finish this. I want to read 10 books, but you know what? Now that I realize, like, everyone who's telling you need to read 12 books a year or 52 books a year, they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah, they want you to buy more books.
Exactly, they want to buy more books. So yeah.
They want you to buy their book and include it as what is it. But if you just took one book, if you just took one chapter, like I could tell you, I know so many people, like they're like, oh, I read Think and Grow Rich. Like, tell me how you implemented one of the principles of Think and Grow Rich. And so reading is not enough. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge, when integrated, is power. And so if I'm reading 3 lines, like today I read the book by Neville Goddard and The Power of Awareness, and he was talking about the naturalness of having your goal already. So it was 3 lines and he was like, connect to the naturalness of having your goal already. Stop waiting to get to the goal. Feel like it's here now.
Yes.
And so I'm just integrating that already. Today, showing up here, it's the naturalness of me being one of the top leaders on podcasts. I'm a thought leader. People invite me to their podcast. So I didn't read 3 chapters, but I took 3 lines and really, really thought it through and thought, how can I embody this and integrate it into my day-to-day, as opposed to be like, oh, well, I read 72 books. No, I'm not that person.
Yeah, because that's very. This is something I needed to hear right here. So I'm glad.
And I'm sure somebody else listening is also like, I need to hear this too.
100%. All you reading 52 books a year just for the goal.